way of being able to bring a community together, bring people together and knowledge together to be able to share. And that's the main thing that I really want to do with Fight Creative.
The Fight Creative Podcast, hosted by Seb Muirhead and Chan Griffin.
All right, sounds good.
Perfect. Welcome to the Fight Creative Podcast. My name is Seb Muirhead and I'm your host for today. And we are joined by one of the best martial artists, world champion, former Strikeforce champion, and honestly a personal favorite of mine. Along with that, he's a highly accomplished actor and producer. Some of his credits include Pandorum, The Grandmaster, Tekken, and a personal favorite of mine, Man with the Iron Fists, Cung Lee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, brother.
So, as I mentioned, you've got a few credits in there, which I'm quite a fan of, as well as sort of grew up watching you in the MMA scene as well. So this is a bit of a pleasure on my behalf. I wanted to start off firstly with maybe if you could give us a bit of a background for people that don't know about any of your MMA or martial arts experience.
I'm just, in 2008, I won the Strikeforce middleweight world champion, defeating Frank Shamrock. And, I started wrestling when I was younger, and then, just competed a lot in junior high, then high school, then did 2 years of college wrestling, and then got back to the martial arts. When I started out in martial arts, I was like 10 years old, but my mom, and she was not that consistent of bringing me to practice because she was working multiple jobs. So every time it was like a belt test, I was like, hey, what's going on? I don't know the form, and it's just the path that led me to martial arts is just like being bullied when I was younger because I was a refugee from Vietnam, and I left Saigon 2 weeks before the fall of Saigon. Luckily for me, that my grandfather was like a former like a chief of police, but for 5 cities, so he always had like a detail around him. And then we were able to hop on a helicopter instead of fleeing Vietnam by a boat. So we fled Vietnam by helicopter, and we were in our first refugee camp, which was in the Philippines. Then we went to another refugee camp in Guam. Then we went to another refugee camp in Monterey. Then after we stayed in Monterey for like a few months, we got a sponsor, and we lived at the sponsor's house for about a year. Then from that, my grandfather got a job as a translator for the CIA. And then he moved us to San Jose, and we got to a house, and we are that typical Asian family with, like 4 or 5 to a room, and the house is like full of people. And so and from there, I just got bullied, and my mom, one time came home and I had a black eye and a bloody nose. So my mom said, oh, you need to start doing martial arts. So she took me to a martial arts, but I was never consistent until after college.
Oh, wow. So it was after college that you really started picking it up sort of full-time or semi-professionally?
Well, because of wrestling in junior high, then as a 7th grader, as the first year, I think I must have had a lot of, like everyone bullying me. So when I got into wrestling, it was like a one-on-one sport. So I excelled really fast in wrestling. So as a 7th grader, I already went to the nationals, and I got to the top 10. And then as an 8th grader, I took silver. Then as a freshman, I just started winning the AU nationals, the wrestling championships. And then I wrestled. I got upset and took third at third in like my section, but I went to state, and I was injured, so I didn't really, because I was ranked number 1 as a senior. So I was injured right at the end at the mid-cows in the finals. And then so from there I was having a hard time making weight because I couldn't run. And then I just barely made weight and got to the league finals, got to sections, and got to state, but I got upset at state just because I wasn't in the best shape because of my ankle. And then I lost it. And then my freshman year in junior college, I won the junior college wrestling state championship, which is one of the tougher ones in California because there's only one state champion, while there's other states they have like Division 2,
Oh,
3.
okay.
Yeah. So so from there, I got back into the martial arts, and God blessed me with a great martial arts career, and then
Yeah.
I transitioned into martial arts movies by one of my fights. I always wanted to do movies. I was curious about it, and I took a couple acting classes and did a few like what would you say it, like a buddy project for like
Oh,
a grade, right? So we did
small
a
independent projects, kind of
yeah.
where you're cutting your teeth essentially.
Yeah, yeah. So then from there, after my fight, my third fight in Strike Force, I fought Tony Frequent. It was either my third or fourth. It was on Showtime, and then from that, after that fight, I had a manager from Hollywood call me. Then an agent reached out to me, and then Scott Coker, who was the promoter at the time,
Yeah.
introduced me to another agent and told me this is a better agent. So I went with Brett from Gersh, and then and I, like the rest is history.
Yeah.
God blessed me with many roads to try to break myself into, because I knew I couldn't fight forever, and by
Of
the time
course.
I got into MMA, I was like towards my twilight years, coming down. So everything was like more of a blessing from God Almighty.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And with the transition from the combat sports world into the sort of cinema martial arts world as well, how did you find that? Because I know a lot of the time martial artists struggle with not punching people essentially on camera, because it's fighting, but it's fighting in a very different context. How did you find the transition going from actually punching people to trying not to punch people?
Well, I think the best thing I did was like when my mom put me in martial arts, it was like Taekwondo and Vietnamese Kung Fu.
Yep.
So when I started the discipline with my teacher at the time, it was all about like we would start, I do my best to be loyal. I do my best, like there's like a creed that we follow by. And then my teacher also followed Jesus Christ. So he talked about Jesus a little bit, but I got all my faith from my granddad, right? So
Yeah, great.
every time we ate at the table, he made sure we prayed, and it was just God was in the mix. So everything that I did from a young age, from every time I wrestled, praying before a match, even though if I lost on some match, I pray after. Thank you for the experience of this match. Let me get better. And then it's just everything I did, like from fighting to making movies. So every time I would do like a line, I would say, Father, help me with this line. Let this be smooth, and give me a chance at let me see this. And he actually guided me through, doing movies, and
Yeah, wow.
I was very physical. And so like, it's like there's a different, like I feel like as a fighter at the highest level
Yep.
and as a martial artist, I had control. I can pull my kicks. I can tap you lightly with my foot with the shoe and not hurt you. So I think the only time I hurt someone was on the set of Bodyguards and Assassin with Donnie Yen. Donnie saying, extend your kicks. I was like, he's not ducking his head. I can't extend my kick. I might hurt him. And
Yeah.
Donnie extend it anyways. I'm not gonna do these off. So you're gonna have a scene. Is you're on the film, or we're gonna get a stunt double to extend the kick. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I told him, hey, lean away, act, because filming for me. And then he
Yep.
did lean away, and I hit him, and he was out for a bit. And
Yeah,
then
wow.
like this is where I was like, oh man, this is like, hey Donnie, look, see, I extend my kick, and look what happened. He's like, oh, it's okay, I'm gonna send him home. He messed up. I'm like, send him home, but this is how he makes a living. So
Yeah. It's amazing as well with that kind of a dance. Like it's a back and forth, and you did everything within your right there as well, and you did it perfectly. And it was maybe just your partner, your dance partner, let's say,
yeah.
in that moment didn't do the correct thing, but it's got pretty dire consequences, unfortunately. But it is just having to trust your partner a lot of the time with that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, really, the one time I got really hurt was on like Tekken, right? And then
Yep.
I just felt like, like the stunt team there, they didn't watch the video game, because like my move was a backflip kick, and then
Yep.
they had the main character Jin do it, and then just like how they had me throw, like like instead of using my best attributes of kicks and punches, they had me do like different things, and it was like really hard to understand. So I started thinking, hey, after that, when you put your fight scene in someone else's hands,
Yep.
I felt like, whoa, okay, that didn't work out too good. And so I'm gonna start asking the stunt coordinator or the fight choreographer so I can put in my own elements like the scissor kicks and my power where I can pick guys up and just maneuver them around. It doesn't matter what weight, you know.
Yep.
So I got a chance to do that when I did a movie called Fighting with Channing Tatum, and then
Yeah, great.
you know, like then when I got into it, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna roll into a umaplata and then lock his head down, and as he brings his head up, I'm gonna swing it back down, and you can have that cut where his head hits the ground, boom, and then comes off from a umaplata, and the guy's like, what's an umaplata? What's that? This should stick you punching and kicking, but I was able to get in the first time where I slapped a triangle on Channing Tatum, and he picks me up and slams me and knocks me out like the Rampage Jackson slam.
Yep.
So for the movie Fighting, I got that in there as the first time someone got slammed like a Rampage slam, you know?
And you have all of the practical and real world experience with that as well, maybe when the American audiences weren't quite as familiar with, I mean, any sort of groundwork as well. So it's amazing that you're able to bring in that collaboration with a lot of projects. Do you find that a lot now as well, that you're able to collaborate with the stunt team or the fight coordinator to bring in a lot of your own personal experience?
Yeah, you know, like because I work they call him Yuen Wu Ping, right? So
Okay.
first time I worked with him was on this project called it was it's a legend of something, but it was my character was like a Mongolian warrior with big beard, and I had a big old sword, and then and here's another thing. It's like when I got a taste of both the Chinese style filmmaking and the Western style filmmaking,
Yep.
and I even got a chance to work with the European style filmmaking when I did Pandora with Constantine Films, right? But
Yeah.
with like Wu Ping, it was like I flew in, and as soon as I got there, they picked me up and they drove, instead of driving me to the hotel, they drove me to set. And I was like, whoa, okay, and they're like, sit down. I'm like, oh, cool, here's tea. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And all of a sudden, makeup artist came. I'm like, we're going right now? Okay.
Wow.
Tea, hey, food, I'm starving, right? So they took care of me because there was food. And like 4 hours later, they did all this, you know, stuff. And I was like, okay. I'm like dozing up, and I go out to the set, and like I'm like, Wu Ping, how you doing? Nice to meet
Yep.
you. And then before I went there, my agent says, oh, Wu Ping doesn't talk much. I heard this from some Disney producer, and I was like, okay. So I was out there, and I was being quiet, and Wu Ping's he slapped me in the shoulder, and then he's like very like he started communicating, like he spoke a little English, and then if whatever he didn't understand, he had a translator. And then he was very funny, and like I noticed, like, you know, like he had his main right hand guy had doing some sword moves, and then they go, you try, and he just threw the sword at me. I'm like, whoa, man, this is crazy. Okay. So I rehearsed a few times, and they're like, oh, very good, very good. Ready? I'm like, ready? What are you talking about? Okay, cameras up, set, ready. I'm like, we're shooting right now. So that's kind of like, okay, let's do it. So
Yeah, right. Wow.
bing, 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 and then and the rest was history. And you know, Vincent, there was a guy who was the lead of the movie. Same thing, like Wu Ping wanted me to extend the sword, and
Yep.
he was supposed to like lean away and, you know, do the dramatic kung fu lean where the sword
Over the top. Yeah.
like that. So every time I was doing it, he was stepping back. So because it was in a weird transition and
Yeah.
like block and strike and then come up. So I would stop, and Wu Ping's all extend. I'm like, hey Vincent, man, you gotta lean back and get that thing. He's all, I'm off, my foot's off balance. Well, you've got to tell, you know, Wu Ping
Yep.
something. And he's like, oh no, let's just do it. And I didn't extend again because he didn't get that lean. So, and Wu Ping's all, talked to him, and then came back and looked at me. He goes, extend. I'm like, that's the lead of your movie. You want me to extend?
Yeah, right.
So I extended it, and I jabbed him with the sword a little bit, and
Yep.
just touched him. And he was, oh, and then it was like a big old deal. And he's like, no problem. He took Vincent off set. He brought in the stunt guy, and had cameras on me. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So, so that was like kind of my like other experience of like with the whipping now instead of meat, you know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like what I I was like the safety in China is not that safety, but
I have heard, yes.
the Americans, oh no, you got to really miss the punch. And I'm like, you can touch me a little bit, I don't mind, it's
Especially
okay.
with trained professionals as well.
Yeah,
They've been training for years not to follow through with a punch or anything like that. So
yeah.
but I think Americans have, or the American system has way more insurance and stuff they need to worry about behind it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So I can understand why they're doing it that way. With that kind of thing as well, when you're being pulled straight off of a plane straight into, well, I mean, fight rehearsals and then shooting on essentially the same day. How do you manage yourself as far as if you need to take a moment to collect yourself? Are you nervous in those moments? Is it, I mean, something that you're just used to now?
I'll tell you right now, being a fighter,
Yep.
get warmed up before a big fight, and you walk out to
Oh,
16,000 in the stadium or
yep.
20,000 people in the stadium. Really, like on a set when you have like 100 crew members
Yep.
and lighting and grips, and and the stunt team is waiting, the stunt coordinator, everyone's like right there. It just doesn't bother me at all. So I was like, and it was more like
Fair
when I
enough.
walked on set, all the actors were, oh wow, Kung Lee, tell me
Yeah.
about this fight, tell me about that fight. And then it's like the director saying, get back to you, come on, get in your positions. It's like that was more that was more of the case for me than being nervous or anything. It's like, hey, let me focus. You guys already know your lines. I just came on set, and all of a
Yep.
sudden, directors, I want you to have lines. I want that you say this. Okay, no problem. So
I mean, that's an amazing experience as well. But I suppose you do come from a very different background from a lot of people stepping onto camera for maybe the first time or the first few times as well. And especially you have worked with some, I mean, massive names, even some of the people you've just mentioned there, Channing Tatum, Donnie Yen.
yeah.
How have you found collaborating with them? Which are people maybe a lot of people are scared to approach or scared to speak to.
Well, like Channing, we became really good friends, and he invited me to his bachelor party in Cabo, and I ended up
Wow.
going, but I got sick, so I didn't really enjoy because the food out there got me sick,
Ah,
and then so it's just like everyone I worked with, I got along with. I think the only person I did get along with was this actor named Rick Yoon. He was from Fast and the Furious.
yep.
So it's just, between me and Dave Bautista, it was on the Man with the Iron Fist.
Yep.
Everyone was saying, who's going to beat up Rick Yoon, Dave Bautista or Kung Lee? And it was just,
Oh, yeah, it's not perfect on every production, but yeah.
yeah. But that was my first time seeing kind of like someone who, doesn't have the Hollywood got to their head. And
Yep.
I just stayed away from him because I just didn't enjoy working with like negative people like that. So I just
Look, it happens as well. Do you have any advice for perhaps when you find yourself in those kind of situations? Because a lot of the time with acting and even action, you have to be quite close and not necessarily intimate, but you're in each other's spaces and trusting each other quite a lot. Did you find that there's any particular ways that you had to deal with that, or any ways that you find most helpful?
well, I think being patient and knowing the story of Job in the
Yep.
Bible, being patient and just knowing that this is his whatever he's going through, that's
Yep.
his issues, and I didn't want to get involved with it, but I did bite my tongue a lot, and that was the only time on a set where I had to bite my tongue. And then Rizzo, who was the director, along with
Yep.
Eli Roth, came and sat me and Dave down and says, guys, I know Rick is this way. Please don't do anything to him. And we're like, we're not doing anything. Who's
Yep.
saying we're gonna do anything? He's just one of those, a crybaby on set and treats the PA really mean. And
Yeah. Look,
yeah,
unfortunately, they're out there as well. But yeah, I think you've come from a very good position with that.
yeah,
A lot
yeah,
more people could adopt that mentality. I think it'd be very handy as
yeah,
well. And also, if a lot of people weren't acting
yeah,
like the other person in the story as well, maybe that might be
yeah,
nice as
yeah.
well. So, coming obviously from your martial arts and fight background, your fight camps and your preparation for upcoming fights, how did a day in the life of a fight camp look comparatively to a day in the life of when you're having to do 10, 12, 14-hour shoot days with very physical things, where it's maybe not just a 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute fight where it's just a long day of throwing the same punch, the same kick over and over again? The preparation for each of those days.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between
Yep.
fighting and entertaining people as a modern day gladiator compared to an actor who comes in, before the movie even starts to do pre-shoots and rehearsals to get the fight scenes down.
Yep.
So like at first when I was with Pandorum, they flew me out 2 weeks ahead of time to get down the fight choreograph because I had a fight with like a weird someone in the suit, and then they
Yeah, a
had,
lot of the strange monsters or whatever they were. Yeah.
yeah. So just from that to like fighting in, but it's the same, like, right, there's a build up, right, and then so the director says, camera set, sound ready, action, right? So that I was like, let's go, but I'm so used to like the referee saying, you ready, get it on, right? So it was like that, but in the movie set, you're doing that for like, long hours, 12 to 18 hours. I even had a one time with Don again. We shot for 24 hours. It's because, the fight scene with Don again. I was telling Donnie, I was like, hey, you're a great fight choreographer. How come you're not choreographing this fight? It's you and me in this. We have like 2.5 blocks of 1905 Hong Kong. Why are we not out there? Why are we in here fighting in a small fish market with fake fish hanging all around and using bamboo sticks? Let's do parkour and all that. So Donnie's all, hey, you talk to Peter Chen, you talk to him, and you tell him, and I'll push it for you. So I just said, hey, you should really look at the dailies, and this is me and Donnie. We can do a lot more. I think this choreographer doesn't have doesn't know our abilities, my abilities at least. And so next thing, like when I talked to him, he's like, okay, I will look at it. And then like a week gone by, I was like, oh, wonder what's going on. And next thing I know, he called me, hey, meet me in the restaurant tonight. I need to talk to you. I was like, oh, okay. And then he was like real brief, and he was like in and out. I was like, oh, he's upset. I hope he don't fire me because I brought this up. So I was sitting there, and I sat down, and he's out, and he laptops, and he turned the laptop around, and I thought it was like, I'm gonna fire you, but it was like the fight scenes. You're right. So I need you to stay an extra 5 days. I'm leaving tomorrow. I can't leave. I have to go back to Comic-Con and do my press for Pandorum there. So I just couldn't do it. So he's okay, we'll bring you back. So after my press, they brought me back, and we shot that in 5 days. And the last day, me and Donnie, we stayed up and we did, like 24 hours of shooting.
How do you prep yourself for that, whether or not you know in the moment or beforehand that you're going to be doing a 24-hour shoot day of some very physical stuff as well? Or is there anything that you're coming into either physically or mentally preparing for in the days before or even the weeks lead up?
Oh, when you train to fight at the highest level, it doesn't matter how many hours it is. You can do anything. You get punched in the face and someone's trying to submit you and put their shin bones on you. So like being on set, of course, injuries do happen, and but it was just it was a completely different from a mindset of a long day compared to training for 6 to 8 weeks, a long, very 6 or 8 weeks of long training. Then the buildup of, okay, driving to the arena, checking in, getting warmed up, getting your hands taped up, and then, okay, fighter on deck. And you're like, whoa, here we go.
Yeah.
Lights, action, camera in the real world compared to, the movies. Okay, how you doing today? You got your lines down? Let's do a quick read or do a quick rehearsal. Oh no, you got to turn your head a little bit more, do this, slam them on this mat instead of over there, or throw them on the table there, so it's like everything is controlled, but in a fight it's more. So there's two different long hours versus hard training. And so it was an easy fit for me.
Yeah, that's nice to hear as well. And you did mention as well their injuries, and of course they happen to the best of us. Maybe more so with yourself with such a storied career in martial arts, and then coming into some very high action cinema as well. When you do get injuries, how do you manage yourself? Because a lot of the time people can on paper look at the injury and be like, okay, this is 6 weeks, I'll rehab this, I'll rest, I'll get surgery. But a lot of the time I've found people don't know what to do with themselves in that point, and it can be quite a destructive or quite a negative time for themselves. So how have you managed yourself during injury periods?
So I'll give you two examples, right? I'll start with fighting first. One, I was fighting Patrick Cote in the UFC, and in the first round, I round kicked him, and my shin by my toes clipped off the dome of his head, and I literally as soon as I set my foot down, I was, oh, that hurt really bad. I think maybe my foot's broken, right? And then so I went back to my corner, I think, and I told my corner man, I said, I think my foot's broken. He's like, what, you want me to throw in the towel? I said, no, I just letting you know, like put some ice on it or something, right? So we got done with that, but like an injury, like on Tekken, right? It was
Yep.
like John Fu. I was fighting with him, and then the easiest punch in the in the whole choreograph, he clipped me on the chin, and this is 3.5 weeks before my fight against Frank Shamrock. So he clipped
Oh
me
wow.
in the lip and he gave me 21 stitches. But it was like we just like that was my last day of filming.
Oh,
And so I was out of there and I go back to training camp, right?
yep.
I kept on saying, hey, telling my agent, Brett, I cannot, like, this fight's way more important. Tekken's only like, it was supposed to be a month of shooting, but they condensed it to a week and they got me in and got me out just
Wow.
for as like, that one fight scene and
Yep.
some quick scenes before that. So it was in and out, and I didn't go in. There was no rehearsal until the day of the shoot. We rehearsed a little bit before we shot. And then when I first came in, they showed me what I need to do, the fight scene like that. And I didn't want to say anything. I was like, man, this is the fight choreograph. I could do way better than this.
Yeah, right.
Doing some really, like, I used to play, the character. I know what, could be done, and so that's when I realized I needed to have more control with the fights.
Yep.
And that's when Dragon Eyes came in, puncture wounds, and when I got a chance to star in my own films or do my own stunts a lot. But then it was kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So when I got to the set of with Daniel Wu Into the Badlands, I was like, hey, there's 11 actors. I'm the actor here. How come there's only 10 stunt guys? And they're like, you don't need a stunt man. I'm like, I do need a stunt man. He's like, no, not with your reputation. I'm like, well, okay. And so I felt like, yeah, cool. But come after 6 weeks and like I'm like on the 5th week, I'm like,
Yep.
I need a stunt double here, because I'm doing, like, I'm standing on the position.
Yep.
I'm like, getting
It takes its toll. Yeah.
It was so much work. That's when I realized I need a stunt man every time I get on set, because that was so much work. And I did not like I felt like that put years on me.
It's
So,
amazing as well, coming off some of those films, the sort of wind down afterwards. How do you sort of rehabilitate or just look after yourself after such a grueling shoot?
well, I really take good care of myself all the time. And when you have a relationship with God, it's because, like, you get blessed with this vessel and you want to take care of the vessel. So you don't ever do like when I'm done with shooting, I go home because I'm doing my own stunts. I'm doing, like the acting part, and I'm even doing my own stand-in, right? Because there's no stunt double. They might have someone do like a stand-in for me so I can like rehearse something else.
Yep.
But there's been so much like nonstop grind. And then I realized, maybe it's fun, but I prefer to have my own, be able to choreograph my own fight scenes. And then when I did do it, I won the action award from the Action Film Fest, and that was Chuck Norris. Was the Action Film Fest.
Yeah.
Best fight choreograph. On Dragon Eyes, and I did all the fight scenes, and I choreographed every single fight scene on Dragon Eyes. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a privilege as well to be able to do so much. I suppose when you're making your own creations, it's a little bit more in your control.
Yeah.
With that as well, for people that have maybe been in the industry for a little bit longer as well, whether it's a stunt performer or whether it's an action actor or an actor, do you have any pieces of advice that you found really handy that you maybe want to impart upon people? I find that a lot of the time with this kind of stuff, we're giving advice to people that are newer to the scene, and that's always the same kind of thing. But for people that have been around a little bit longer, is there anything you found particularly helpful that you'd like to pass on?
Well, I truly believe a strong work ethic, because if you're going to be in the film industry, you need to put in the hours, you need to put in the time, and you have to be dedicated on every time the director says action, you have to be on. You have to be like almost perfect. And then you mess up and they, back to position one, ready, and so from that, to compare to like fighting. I got the best of both worlds, but I got to say, with the movies, every time you do something, I get a chance to, okay, Father, please protect me in this scene, protect my, my stuntmen,
Yep.
all injuries, and I'm praying in my head, let everything go smooth, and so now I'm talking to God a lot more. But like in training, you pray before practice, you pray after practice, and then before a fight you pray, and then after a fight you pray. Then you point up to the sky for God, giving him credit. So I mean, both can bring in the element of faith. But like, for my advice for any one who is a veteran at it,
Yep.
build that relationship with God, because God is the divine protection. And I know that because on Pandorum, I told the Constantine film's producer, I can't remember his name, but he produced Resident Evil.
Oh yeah.
It's not coming to me, but but basically what happened was I was like getting ready to do an acting scene, right? And I saw my stunt guy, and then there's this one scene where he falls onto a table from like a high elevator, and I was like, I'll get on that wire. I'm like, what's he doing? Oh, don't worry, he's just testing the wire for you. And then when I was done, Kung, we had him do your stunt, and he got injured. He had to go to the hospital. We need you to just drop down to the wire, because he fell, cracked onto the table, was perfectly fine.
Wow.
And we keep that, but he's injured, but we need the jump again. So I jumped off, I didn't hit the table. And I realized before that, I was like, Father, it's your will. I'm not going to, because I want to do every single stunt in the movie. And that's the one stunt I didn't do. So I said, Father, I guess, you protected me, and thank you. And so you got to realize, because when you have that relationship, right? And then so from that, I knew I was protected. So
fantastic.
So I think it was very important to have that relationship. I know a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of religions. Well, what I learned is there's only one God, and there's 4,200 religions. So the devil is the great deceiver. So just know that God of the Bible is the God Almighty, and he's the most merciful, and he's the most love, but he gives you free will to choose. So if you choose him, he's there. If you don't choose him, he's going to make sure he's still there, but not as deep as when you have a relationship with him. It's like, like he favors those who come to him and who tells him, hey, I'm about to do something dangerous, please protect me every single time. So like even on like the Into the Badlands, there was this one scene where it was just the two stunt actors did a flip, and then I put my hand out and they landed on my arm. It was like them, like the wire had to be perfect to land perfectly, and it was like this, like it was like 3 hours of that, and I was like, I've never had a shoulder workout like that before. Like the next day I couldn't move my shoulders, right? So
wow.
Okay, maybe we got to do acting scenes because I can't remove my shoulders, right? They're like, okay, no problem, we're gonna do acting today anyway. So that was kind of like, and every time that scene happened, oh Father, let it be right, so that hurts when they land like that, God.
I imagine.
Yeah, and they're like, Come, can't you be stable? I'm like, you got to tell them not to land so hard. So they're like, oh, the guy, the wires, right? So
yeah, fantastic. And I think that's a perfect note to end on as well, to be honest with you, Kung. Thank you so much again for your time and sharing everything with us as well. I do genuinely appreciate it.